All right, I'm live now. Let me get live on Instagram, and then we're going to jump right into what we're talking about today. Because there's going to be some stuff up in here today. I already know. I already know what's going to happen. I already know. Okay. So just get ready. So let me tell my people I'm here. Because some people like to tune in and watch me live, and then some people watch the replay. So let's get that going. And we can proceed. There we go. I was trying to get the link. Let me get rid of that annoying echo. Annoying echo is annoying. So we're going to get rid of that. And there we go. So, yeah, so much stuff you got to do. But it is what it is. All right. Okay. So now we're going to jump on into what we're going to talk about today. And what we're going to talk about today is, let me put that on the screen. What we're going to talk about today is Peter, Paul, and Mary. Now, some of y'all would have to be a certain age to even understand what it is I did there. But for those of you that understand what I did there, put that in the chat that you understand what I did there. We're going to talk about Peter, Paul, and Mary. We're going to talk about this wretched relationship that Mary Jane Watson has had with Paul all this time and the latest development with it and just what we think of it. Because I got a lot of thoughts. Got a lot of thoughts for you. Got a lot of thoughts. A lot of thoughts. Okay. So, for those of you that don't know, but you should know, if you follow comics at all, you know that once again, they broke up Mary Jane and Peter a while back. And, we can go as far back as, One More Day and Brand New Day if you want to. But then they hooked Mary Jane up when Peter was supposedly in another dimension or gone for years, or Mary Jane thought she was never going to see him again. So they hooked Mary Jane up with a dude named Paul. And Paul has had a couple of different iterations in terms of who he was or who he could be or who he's working for, all that. So all that has to do with the stuff they've done in the comics. But the main point of this relationship was to throw it in the face of fans. Even, what's up, Cajun? Good to see you. So even the editor at Marvel was saying he didn't want Peter and Mary Jane together. And Marvel knows and they have known for a long time that this is hated by fandom. that nobody has liked this relationship with Mary Jane and Paul. And nobody has supported. I mean, literally nobody likes this. And they've made a focused effort to keep Mary Jane and Peter apart. Their statement being over and over again that they think that it ages Peter Parker if you give him a family, if you let him stay married, all this different kind of stuff. And every version of Peter that is married to Mary Jane in whatever reality or comic or whatever they're doing is successful. So it's actually not true that fans have a problem with Peter and Mary Jane being together. That's not coming from actual fans. That's coming from Marvel editorial. They don't want Peter and Mary Jane together for a bunch of different reasons. The first excuse when they did One More Day and Brand New Day was that it ages Peter too much. But we don't care. We love Peter Parker as a 15-year-old when he got his powers. We loved him all the way out of high school. We loved him through college, loved him through grad school. And I definitely have loved him as a father. And we love Mayday, his child. I mean, you know, there's pretty much been no iteration of Peter in 616 that the fans haven't supported. So that's editorial that says that, not us, that it ages him. But also it's because they hate Peter and they have long made Peter Parker their personal punching bag. We're going to talk about that today. And also because they hate the fans now. And everything about this Mary Jane and Paul relationship was designed. So in a sense, it's Mary Jane's relationship with Paul is the last Jedi of Spider-Man. It was written, or the She-Hulk of Spider-Man, it was written and created sheerly out of spite. The whole point of it was spite. It was created, promoted, pushed, and thrown in your face on a regular basis just to spite those who have been longtime Spider-Man fans, longtime Peter and Mary Jane fans, longtime Parker family fans. Like, nope. We know what you want. We're not going to give it to you. We're going to put her with this other dude and let her have a family with him. Anybody but Peter. So there's a phrase, a term I coined called spite right. That's spite right. That's when they purposely write something just to spite the fans. They purposely write something just to spite the audience that wants a certain thing, and then they go against it. Comic books are the only industry that have repeatedly and continually done that. Some other industries have tried it, tried to appeal to a modern audience, tried to tell their fan base to, you know, just go away. We don't need you. We don't need your business. We don't care about you. So notable examples of that have been Bud Light, when they did their whole Dylan Mulvaney on the can thing and had him promote. And the president at the time said that Bud Light had been fratty and frat boy and old school and white man and locker room, and it's outdated, and we need new drinkers. And the way to get new drinkers is to focus on, you know, DEI, diversity, inclusion, equity, whatever. That blew up in their face. They lost a huge amount of market share, and they haven't gotten it back because the whole nation boycotted Bud Light. It was the most amazing thing. It's like everybody that's a beer drinker said they weren't going to drink that beer, but there was video of the delivery men trying to take beer to different events, and it's like, the case is full of Bud Light, ain't nobody buying it. Okay. Recently, who just did that same thing was Jaguar, Jaguar Car Company. They released a commercial which was basically human beings as starbursts. And they had all kind of different, you know, gender identities and nationalities and ethnicities and whatever, but they looked like human starbursts. And in that first ad, there were no cars. Just the Jaguar name comes up at the end, but there are no cars in the ad. And the whole world scratched their head. And the man that did that got on YouTube and defended it. And, you know, we need to deal with the modern audience, and we need to come into today. And, you know, that macho masculine with all that's dated, and we don't need to do that anymore, blah, blah, blah. And Jaguar lost what, 80% market share, 80% of their customers once they did that. So normally when you have companies that go woke, they go broke so fast, they go broke so inarguably, they have to throw their hands up and say, okay, well, we're going to have to choose between a woke direction and staying in business. And most companies that have kind of, found out that wasn't a thing to do, go back to traditional marketing. That's what the whole hubbub is about this week, about Sydney Sweeney and the blue jean ads. People trying to say that that's Nazism, racism, and eugenics and a whole bunch of stuff. Because on the play on words of her having good genes, because she's an attractive actress and she's modeling blue jeans, and there are a certain segment of society that hates that. But American Eagle is going back to what works. They're not trying to pander to that crowd. Now, why did I take the time to say all that? Because I'm trying to help you to understand the climate that we're living in right now. That's the kind of climate we've been in for the last 10 years at least, since at least 2015, if not sooner. But at least since 2015, we've been in a climate where there's been such a focused push on going woke and spiting the fans. And so for Spider-Man fans, the biggest blow before this was One More Day and Brand New Day. But then when they put Mary Jane with Paul, everybody was like, and so it's sent shockwaves. It sent a lot of people reeling. Made a lot of people stop reading Spider-Man, stop buying Spider-Man, and people only buy the version where he's with Mary Jane and they have a family. The fans have rejected wholeheartedly this whole Mary Jane and Paul thing. Okay. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to pull up an article and we're going to go through it. Is that what I want? No, let me do this. So we're going to pull up an article. We're going to go through it. And we're going to talk about exactly where we think this is going. Now, first of all, first thing I have is, why is Nightcrawler and Amanda in the graphic? That's not who this article is about. Let me see. Do I like myself better on the side here? Okay, I like that better. So that's not who this article is about, but for some reason they put them in the graphic, but okay. So they're talking about Marvel's most hated relationship is finally over. Okay, so an all-new Venom #9. Now, for those of you that haven't been keeping up, Mary Jane has also merged with the Venom symbiote, and now she is a Venom. That's another idea I personally would have nixed a long time ago. I would have stopped the whole symbiote thing at Venom and Carnage. There would have just been two. Because they went crazy and everybody named Mama became a symbiote. So now Mary Jane has a symbiote, if you didn't know that. So she's a Venom now too. So don't get me started on that. Lord have mercy. Okay. Let's see if I can blow that up. So Marvel's most loathed relationship between Mary Jane Watson and her boyfriend Paul is officially over. As Mary Jane continues to acclimate to her role as the newest host of the Venom symbiote, eye roll, she has come to terms with this need for another major change in her life, moving away from a relationship that isn't working for anybody. All New Venom #9 by the creative team of Al Ewing and Carlos Gomez concludes with a dramatic breakup scene of MJ and Paul. I'm sorry, Paul, I'm breaking up with you. Okay, it is a legitimately emotional scene as Paul tries to keep Mary Jane from leaving him, but for the majority of Marvel fans, this turn of events is a cause for celebration rather than sorrow. Okay, let's talk about this. So first of all, and there's a second article too. I'm gonna pull up the other article in a minute because I had to cross-reference this because nowadays you can't even trust articles or tweets or anything. You gotta research and see because some stuff is just clickbait, some stuff is just out there, and there's no article. There's no research. There's no anything. So go figure. Okay, so it looks like, based on that last panel, this is Venom number 9, that Mary Jane's breaking up with Paul. But I've got, and we fans have got some questions. Okay, the first question is kind of obvious, and that is, in what universe, reality, Earth, or timeline is this happening? Because I just have a feeling, I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'll be the first to admit it. I just have a feeling this is a bait and switch. I really do. I really have a feeling that this is a bait and switch. I really have a feeling that no matter how this looks, it's not actually what they're trying to make it look like. So it could be something along the order of Mephisto casting an illusion or a spell. And how I think this is going to end, I think this is going to end with Mary Jane running back into Paul's arms and crying and apologizing for leaving him and how she didn't mean it. So this might be an illusion, this might be a spell, this might be a dream, this might be another Earth, this might be another timeline. I just have this strong feeling that it's a bait and switch. Okay. Now, also, you got to remember, they have purposely maligned Mary Jane's character ever since this Paul thing has been going on. She's made fun of Peter. She's been throwing her relationship with Paul in Peter's face. Okay. You can't just ignore all that. You can't just act like all of that didn't happen. Now, there are a lot of people, there's certain sections of fandom that loves to act like stuff that happened didn't happen. We'll talk about that in a minute. You can't ignore how Mary Jane has been mocking Peter, throwing her relationship with Paul in Peter's face repeatedly. So there is no pretending that that didn't happen. Okay. So unless they're going to pull like some clone crap, like they just did with Gwen, they said that the Gwen that they brought back and that they made Gwenpool, I think, was actual Gwen, 616 Gwen. And no, it's just another clone. So Lord have mercy, they need to let this clone stuff alone with Spider-Man. We have had it up to here with clones in Spider-Man. But anyway, so this is probably going to be that, a clone of some alternate timey-wimey stuff, pocket dimensions, whatever. There's a million different ways in comics you can make something seem like it's happening in the central story, but it's really not. Okay? Some type of timey-wimey stuff or some such illusion or whatever. It might even be a bad dream. That's what I mean when I say the way I think this is going to end is Mary Jane running back to Paul and apologizing for leaving him and apologizing for breaking up with him and all that. That's where I think this is going. Could be wrong. It's just what I think. Okay? So, I mean, they've made such a focused effort to throw this hated relationship in Peter's face in story and in fans' face in the real world until it's just like the last 10 years of woke. It's just like The Last Jedi. It's just like when they were, I forgot who it was. I think his name was Pablo. I forgot his name. There was a guy that loved Star Wars so much, he saw some new Star Wars and he was crying. And then old boy got online and made fun of him for crying. So that Jessica Gao, I remember her name, that wrote She-Hulk, said she wrote it to own the chuds. So for the last 10 years, they've been making a point, like you've heard me say over and over again, they've been making a point to mock their fan base. So this whole stuff of Mary Jane and Paul is not just going to go away just because she breaks up with him supposedly. Okay? So here's the next question. The next question is, are we just assuming that this means that Peter and Mary Jane would get back together? Are we just assuming that? Because even if this Paul breakup is legit, that doesn't mean that she and Peter are going to reunite, especially not right away. I mean, there might be some rebound, rekindling. Sometimes when people break up, they go back to their exes very, very quickly. Sometimes people move on very, very quickly. Yes, I know that can happen. But the reason I think it won't happen, pay attention to what I'm saying, is because there's an opportunity to torment Peter to know that Mary Jane is out there and she's single, but she's still not with him. Do you follow what I'm saying by that? They hate Peter Parker so much, and they hate us so much, until there's an opportunity here that if Mary Jane really is leaving Paul, and that's really legit, and it happens in 616 universe, and it's no illusion, it's no, double speak, it's no bait and switch, which is what I think it is. If she's just out there and she's single, that's still going to be her saying, even though I'm not with Paul, I still don't want to be with you. I don't think they're going to be able to resist. However they spin it, if she says, my life is different because of the symbiote, or I need some time, or whatever. If she's out there and she's not with Peter, and Peter knows she's out there, but she's choosing not to be with him, that would be a prime opportunity to make Peter hurt and broken and mopey yet again. And I don't think they'll be able to resist that, honestly. Next question up is this right here. Oh, this is going to be a can of worms right here. The next question up is, who really wants them back together? Who really wants Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson to rekindle their romantic relationship? Who actually wants that now among the fans? Okay. Now, I know there's a section of Mary Jane fans, because they're just like every other subculture of fandom. They're like snarling dogs that attack in rabid packs if you speak anything against their beloved and precious Mary Jane. Okay. It's really a shame that fandom has turned into that, where you can no longer have your own opinion. You've heard me talk about that many times on my weekly comics chat. But they're snarling, rabid, angry, hungry pit bulls. And if you say anything against their precious Mary Jane, they're going to attack. Can't speak a word against her because she's the best thing ever happened to Peter, blah, 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 blah. I know that Peter and MJ have the longest history and track record. I know that. But she created a whole family with somebody else. And she's also now a part of Venom. So to me, is what Peter and Mary Jane had even recoverable? When Mephisto broke them up, he said he wanted their marriage. He wanted their love. And they also sacrificed a future child, probably Mayday, for that deal. This Mary Jane is not that Mary Jane. One more time. This Mary Jane is not that one. She's a completely different person. This is not the same Mary Jane that we knew. So if this is the same woman and it's not a clone, it's not an alternate reality, it's not an illusion, it's not a spell, it's not a bad dream, it's not timey-wimey stuff, it's not all of that, then we cannot pretend that all she's done and experienced since then just doesn't matter. When has that ever been the case? When you've broken up with someone and then they go build this whole other life, and then when you reconnect with them, that all the stuff that they did away from you didn't have an impact. When does that happen? When does that happen? Now, I could go on this whole rant. I won't, but I could go on this whole rant about people who keep trying to gaslight folks with this whole choices don't produce consequences thing. I can't even keep a straight face when I say it. There's this whole section of people that scream at the top of their lungs that you can make choices but not get consequences. That is not true. There's no reality in which that is true, where you get a choice without a consequence. So this version of Mary Jane is not the one we knew, and it's not the one we loved, and it's not the one that Peter knew and loved either. This is one that's made fun of him. This is one that built a whole life and family with somebody else. This is one who is now a part of Venom. This ain't the same girl. Do we want them together? Okay. Do we want to see Peter also be cuckolded yet again? Cuckolded yet again? Do we want to see that? Now, I said this on Twitter, but I'm going to repeat it here. Okay. This is Mary Jane's version of Sin's Past. Now, for those of you that don't know, but if you're watching me, you should know because you're probably comic fans. But anyway, they did this whole storyline a few years back called Sin's Past, where these twins show up and they look like Peter Parker and Gwen. And it turns out that Gwen Stacy actually had a set of twins and Peter didn't know. And then it turns out that the father was Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin himself, hooked up with Gwen Stacy and got her pregnant with twins. Why would they make that storyline? The storyline, they only made it to hurt Peter, to cuckold Peter. And because I think Quesada was having problems in his marriage. So whenever the writers or the editorial staff are having problems in their relationship, they take it out on Peter Parker. Okay. So in Sin's Past, now thank God that's been retconned, but it was out there for a long time that Norman and Gwen had a relationship and they produced a set of twins just to destroy Peter, just to humiliate him, just to break him down, just to torment him. Yes, that is nasty work. That's right. So this is Mary Jane's version of that. It's literally the same thing, except it didn't happen in her past. It happened in her present. We found out about those twin children and about Norman being the one to impregnate Gwen after it happened. So it was something that happened in the past. And then they kind of retconned her death with saying that's why Norman was specifically going after her, because they had a relationship. So it wasn't just to hurt Peter, it was also because of whatever he was feeling and wanted to do to her. So they kind of retconned that whole thing when they first wrote it. And then when they brought it back out of existence, they retconned it again to be something, an illusion that Mysterio created to make Norman think it happened. So thank God they finally got rid of that. But what I'm trying to say now is that this is Mary Jane's version of that. Paul is Mary Jane's version of Sin's Past, except we need to rename it Sin's Present, because that's what it is. It's literally the same thing. You going off, being Peter Parker's main love interest, making a family with someone else right in his face. So Gwen did it in the past, and then Mary Jane also knew about it. Mary Jane knew that Gwen and Norman had hooked up, if you didn't know, if you never read it. But this is in the present, and so this is the same thing. So do we really want to see, because if they get back together, there's going to be all these scenes of Peter moping. He's going to do like guys do. And what do guys do? He's going to imagine Mary Jane in that relationship with Paul. And that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt really, really badly. And that's normal and that's human. But I'm saying there's no way that, like a rubber band, they just snap back to being the couple that we know. And is that really what we want? Because if they do get back together, there's going to be so many scenes of Peter moping, and understandably so. There are plenty of people in the real world, in real life, that have broken up with their ex moved on. Later on, they swung back around and got back with their ex. But in so doing, they had to face the fact that their ex was bringing some more baggage back to the relationship this time, including all of their activities since we broke up. And that's why I'm telling you about people that try to gaslight, that try to act like choices don't come with consequences. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And I don't care how much you love someone. In fact, the more you love them, the more of that you're going to have to work through if they went off and built another life and then y'all got back together. There's just No way around that. I don't even understand people that would try to submit the proposition that there's a way around that, because no, there isn't. No, there isn't. And so once again, it'll be Peter being the mopester, sitting around their bedroom moping and going, web swinging and trying to fight, trying to get Mary Jane and Paul out of his mind. Do we want to see that? Do we need to see that? Do we need to see Peter Parker be a punching bag for the writers yet again? Which leads me to my next question. My next question is, what is Peter's future? What is Peter's future? Now, what I mean by that is, are we just going to keep resetting Peter Parker from here on out? That's what just happened in the Holland movies with Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home. And then boop, reset. Still no Uncle Ben. Aunt May's dead. Still a stupid guy in the chair. And they're even stupider version of MJ, but they don't remember him. So now Peter's broke and hand making his costume. So the best part of that is no more Iron Spider Boy. We like that. But no one remembers him and no one remembers his identity. So he got this huge reset. So whether we like it or not, that's what happened in the Sony/Marvel Spider-Verse. So this new one, when they're doing Brand New Day, and let me say, I do not understand why they would purposely pick a title of one of the most hated storylines of all time, if not just out of spite. They know how much we hated One More Day and Brand New Day. So of course they're going to title Holland's latest movie Brand New Day. Okay, of course you will. So he just got a reset. What I want to know is, are we not going to allow Peter Parker to age past 28? Because I loved him as a teenager when he first got his powers, all the way through high school, all the way through college, graduate school, when he was an associate teacher and a professor. I loved all that. I loved him as a dad. So I didn't have a problem with Peter Parker actually at any stage in life, honestly. But they keep saying that we have to reset Peter back to being 15 and he can't get older than 28. Then we got to reset him again. So is that going to be the loop from here on out? Is that going to be all that's done? Now I know in comics that's a perennial subject. I know that's a subject we talk about all the time, which is aging, because there is no normal aging in comics, except for some indie comics actually do that, just like some indie comics age their characters in real time, and some indie comics let the characters die, and when they die, they stay dead. So I know there is some work out there where that's the case. But I'm talking about with mainly DC and Marvel. First DC a long time ago came up with Earth 1 and Earth 2. So the World War II heroes actually ended up being on Earth 2. So there's a Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman. And then there's, Dr. Fate, Dr. Midnight, the Spectre, the Jay Garrick original Flash. All those people ended up being on Earth 2. And then there's Earth 1 with our contemporary thing. Then we got into multiverse, blah, blah. Then we got into Crisis and blah, 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 blah. But we know that comic book characters do not age in real time. We know that. So that's always a conversation we have to have as longtime comic fans, because at some point you have to deal with it. One of the most obvious examples and one of the longest running jokes is, how many Robins is Bruce going to train? Because we got Grayson, the original Robin. We got Jason Todd, who got beaten to death by the Joker and came back. We've got Tim Drake. We've got Bruce's son, Damian. We have Stephanie Brown, who was also Spoiler and Batgirl, and she was a Robin. So, and now he's got Signal as well. He's got Duke, which is just ridiculous to me. He's such a ridiculous character to me, and he looks like Diet Wolverine, but that's another conversation. So how many proteges, how many Robins, how many sidekicks is Bruce Wayne going to train? How old is he? How old is he? Now, one of the more recent comics, they say Bruce is going to be showing his age. So is it going to make him be What does that mean, showing his age? Does that mean 40, 45, 50? Because if Grayson is 30, 35, how much older was Bruce? Grayson was a boy, So anyway, so that's constantly a thing with Batman. As the Bat family grows and Bruce keeps staying the same age until we get to Batman Beyond. So I'm saying that to say that I know this is a regular issue, but here's the thing with Peter Parker. The thing with Peter Parker is they don't just ever reset him. Do you know what they do with Peter Parker? They bust him down to nothing every time. They can't just reset Peter age-wise. They have to bust Peter down to nothing. That's the pattern. They always bust Peter down to nothing. No money or no Uncle Ben or no something or whatever. He's always got to start over from scratch because they always bust Peter down to nothing. Okay? And so that's what I mean when I said earlier, I don't think that they would miss an opportunity to torment Peter and the fans by having Mary Jane out there, but they're not together. But it, like I said, is this the time loop we're stuck in now? Where Peter can only age so far and then he's got to go back to being in high school, got to go back to being a teenager again. That's part of what people like about Miles Morales, those that like Miles Morales, because he's another controversial character. But it's that he's young again, so we get to get a Spider-Man at that age range, which is nothing wrong with that. But I'm saying, are they going to keep doing that to Peter is the question. Busting him back to being a teenager, to busting him down to nothing, making sure that all his love interests go and sleep with somebody else and start a family with somebody else and have kids with somebody else right in his face. Is this the loop we're on with Peter Parker? Because I'm about tired of it. I'm about tired of it. I know I'm not the only one either. I know I'm not the only one that's tired of seeing them do that to Peter. Excuse me. But it's all they do to Peter. So are we going to get a chance to get off that at some point? Is my question. Finally, the last thing we're going to talk about today is Paul's fate. We don't know what Paul's fate is yet, because the whole thing could be retconned to be an illusion or a bad dream. The whole thing can be retconned to be some kind of spell. The whole thing could be retconned to be, like I said, there are unlimited possibilities in comic books. So we don't really know. But Paul's fate is he need to die hard, as far as I'm concerned. That need to be his fate. Paul need to die hard. Remember how the Sentry ripped somebody in half? I forgot who it was that he ripped in half. That. Paul need to die hard. Maybe Mary Jane is venom. Maybe she eats him. I don't know. Paul need to die hard. You know why? Because we need to have some type of substantial answer to this wretched character's existence. Fans deserve some type of emotional closure, just like we got with Sins Past. With Sins Past, we found out it never happened. Norman never actually slept with Gwen, and they never actually had twins, and it was all an illusion created by Mysterio to make Norman believe it. It was one of the most awful storylines in Spider-Man history. But at least we got some closure. We need that kind of closure with this wretched character of Paul. He needs to die hard. He needs to die really, really hard. Okay? So there are all kind of memes this week on Twitter where Peter was punching Paul out. And, because people just hate him. But people hate his existence. People hate the fact that he exists. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Paul does not need to ride off in the sunset. Paul does not need to just kind of quietly go away. Paul needs to die hard and graphically, and we need to see it. No more of you. End of you. You're not out there. You're not doing whatever. No more of you, dog. Bye-bye now. That's what we want and need as fans for this wretched, wretched character and this wretched, wretched storyline. But like I said, we got to wait till Venom number 10 comes out, and we also have to see where this is really going, because we don't know. We don't know yet. We don't. This could go so many different ways. This could go so many different ways. This could go so many different ways. We have to wait to see. But I'm saying we need this character to be gone in a very clear, decisive, graphic, and ugly way, so we can finally shut the door on this wretched chapter in Peter's life, where once again, he's a punching bag for the writers. Okay, I'm going to look at Cajun's comments. He's the only one to drop me some comments. Said, wow, that's nasty work. Yeah, that's in response to Sins Past. It was nasty work, very much so. Very much so. I mean, how low do you have to go? How deep into depravity do you have to dig to take Peter's first love, and the one that I argue is the love of his life, but that's another conversation, take her and make her have cheated on him, but not just have cheated on him, but have birthed twins, and not just birthed twins, but they twins by Green Goblin, by Norman Osborn. That, if we stayed up all night for a week, we wouldn't think of something like that, but they did. So yeah, that's very nasty work. Sins Past was, and we hated it, and we said we hated it over and over and over and over and over again. Okay. All right. Yeah, they never clear that up with Batman. That's right, they don't. It's the longest running joke with Batman. How old is Bruce? How old can he possibly be when you got half a dozen Robins underneath your belt? So we know, according to Batman Beyond, that he basically Batmans until he can't anymore, and he stops Batmaning because he loses his temper and almost starts using guns, and he just feels himself start to lose it, so he stops. And then by the time we catch up with Terry, Bruce is an old man on medication, coughing and wheezing and all that. He's still Batman, though. He's still got it, that intimidation thing. He's just Batman older. So, but we never really get a definitive kind of answer because of that timey-wimey comic book aging stuff. There's no way around it. If you want a character to continue, they can't age normally. That's just a part of the mythos that we have to accept. And so I think he's laughing here at what I said I want to happen to Paul, because I want Paul to end. I want Paul to go to LV-426, meet an alien queen in an alien hive chamber, and get introduced to a face hugger. And I want to see it. Okay? That's how I want Paul to end. Really do. Y'all know I don't pull no punches. Y'all know I'm honest. Even when it's ugly, you know I'm honest like a mug. So, yeah, because we need and deserve closure for this whole thing. Yes, we do. Yes, we do, because we've had to endure this. And we've had to endure people asking us for money and emotional investment. People that clearly hate us and hate Peter. I can't make sense of them two things juxtaposed. On the one hand, they say, give us emotional investment, watch our movies, give us money, buy our books. On the other hand, they say, we hate you, we hate Peter, we know what you want, we're going to make a focused effort not to give it to you. Which is one of the same things that happened with the Fantastic Four movie. Now, I think it was Jester Bell. If you watch Jester Bell, she's another YouTuber. I think it was Jester Bell that said the hardest fight in the movie was them fighting not to give the fans what they wanted. And I love that line of hers. That was from one of her videos. I love that quote of hers. The hardest fight, they were fighting hard not to give the fans what they wanted in Fantastic Four. Okay? So that applies here with Peter Parker in the comics. They've been fighting hard for a long time to not have Peter and Mary Jane together. But I just don't think I just don't think it's possible at this point because that's not the same woman and it wouldn't be the same. And even if they built something new, the shadow of the past would loom over them. Don't you understand that? Haven't you ever run into your current ex somewhere? Haven't you ever been out with your current person and while you're out, watching a movie or grabbing a meal or having a cup of coffee, their ex shows up? How is that not awkward? When is that not awkward? So, I mean, that's what I mean when I say Paul needs to end and they don't need to take this as yet another opportunity to torment Peter, but they probably will. Who's hiring these people? Well, you've heard me talk about it many times, but that goes back to the whole push for DEI, the whole push for, I talked about this last week, but remember how I told you about how if the cake is bad, if they put icing on top of it, that's to make you swallow bad cake easier. If it's sweet on top, but nasty in the middle, the sweet on top. Okay, they said that we need more diverse voices in comics, meaning all the characters don't need to be straight white men and all the writers, editors don't need to be straight white men. So that was the Trojan horse that they used to get people in that were actually hacktivists. That's Nerdrotic's word, so I want to give Gary credit. That's Nerdrotic's word, hacktivist. A hack, meaning you're not writing anything original. You're just ganking stuff from other people. And an activist, meaning you're not there to tell stories. You're there to use an established story world as a platform for your agenda. Hacktivist. So the pitch was, we want different voices to be able to tell stories. On the surface, that doesn't sound like a bad idea. But it was a Trojan horse that they used to sneak in the worst people and the worst stuff we've seen in comicdom. People that hate the characters, hate the story world, hate the fans. And they've been shoving that down our throat and just want to use the comic world as a platform to spew their agenda. Remember at the end of Falcon and Winter Soldier, you need to do better, Senator. That to me summed up the whole woke movement. Somebody that's a person of color, someone that's non-Caucasian, standing somewhere pointing their finger in the face of someone that is Caucasian, someone is in power, saying, trying to blame them for all the problems or you need to do better, whatever. That to me summed up everything that the last 10 to 12 to 15 years has been about. Because it wasn't actually about diverse voices. And when they did all new, all different Marvel, and when they did Marvel Now, it wasn't about that. It was about turning the male characters female. It was about turning the white characters black. It was about turning some straight characters gay. It was about saying that the people that we've loved for 60, 70 years are lame and weak and wrong. So you need Jane Foster Thor. And all of a sudden Thor's a mantle instead of his name. And you need Miles Morales, and you need Kamala Khan, and you need Sam Wilson, Captain America, because Steve Rogers is now old. And then, lest we forget, don't forget the New Warriors, and don't forget Internet Gas Guy with the visor. His powers came from the gas you get from the internet. And don't forget Backpack Girl, who was overweight and I think an indigenous person, I think a Native American, and she had a magic backpack. And we can't ever forget Snowflake and Safe Space, where the boy was colored pink and the girl's costume was colored blue to gender reverse the roles and blah, blah, blah. Remember all that? Remember all that? I do. That wasn't that long ago, that was just 10 years ago. Because it was not a chance for different perspectives or different writers the way they framed it. It was just a Trojan horse for agenda pushing and bashing all of the characters that so many of us have loved for decades, not people that love the characters and people maybe wanted to bring in some different ideas. Like I've had some different ideas about how I would write Superman or what I would do and how I would write Spider-Man and stuff like that, but it doesn't have anything to do with bashing what was. Like one of the things I would do if I wrote Superman is I would reduce the number of overall Kryptonians, because I think there just needs to be Kal-El and Kara and Krypto. I think it adds to their sense of depending on each other, and it adds to one of the most downplayed aspects of Superman is his natural loneliness. They play up the loneliness in the life of Martian Manhunter, being the last of his race. But with Superman, because he has Lois, they try to, and the Kents, that's better than nothing. But I always imagine stories where Superman would come more to the forefront. See, that to me is not a violation of the Superman that we know. For example, if I was writing him, that's what I mean. Stuff like that. But that's not what happened. That's not what happened. Okay, Dave T. Geek is here. Decanonize all the Marvel comics after the year 2000, make it the 666 universe. Not too fond of those numbers, those Antichrist numbers, but the principle of decanonizing all of that stuff and setting it in its own universe, I do like that. I do think that's what needs to happen. All of the woke stuff, all of the DEI stuff, all of the all new stuff, everything that they did to say, white man bad, women good, straight bad, gays, everybody got to be gay, right, okay. They've literally made every Marvel character gay. They are now all open sexually or effectively bisexual, open to sexual transsexuals. Wokies believe that strict heterosexuality is immoral. I just saw a tweet that they're mad that Wednesday, I don't watch Wednesday, but I know what the show is, Jenna Ortega's Wednesday Addams, her best friend, they're straight. They're not actually having a relationship. And I saw a tweet this week about some people are mad about that because now everything has to be that. And I'm like, people can't just be friends anymore? There has to be some type of sexual involvement now, like Dave was saying, where, it's all got to be this diffuse sexuality and all the different kind of stuff. So that whole idea of decanonizing all the things that have happened since 2000, if we go back that far, but at least 2015, but maybe we do need to go back to the turn of the century, because all it has done, the net result has been to destroy, which is why I say it was a Trojan horse. I don't care what people say. I don't care how much they try to argue me down on Twitter. I look at the net result, because all that screaming and frothing at the mouth and all that bluster in the middle is just smoke and mirrors. What's the bottom line? What's the net result? And the net result of all of this wokeness, and we need to be open and all this different kind of stuff, has been nothing but franchise destruction. Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Star Trek, the MCU. Over and over again, what is the net result? The net result is destruction. The net result is humiliating, degrading, destroying the characters that we loved, making sure that the characters we grew up on and invested money in, we'll never see them on the big screen, and replacing them with DEI characters like Rey is just a self-insert character to try to replace Luke. That has been the net result of all of this. They believe that heterosexuality is bad. That's why they get mad about characters being definitively straight. They must all be, to some degree, of open, queer, pansexual, or bisexual. So the net result of the whole woke movement, the net result, the bottom line, has been destruction. Look what's happened to Star Wars. Star Wars used to be a license to print money. Star Wars is the most successful and beloved, at least it was, sci-fi and fantasy brand with a 40 plus year fan base coming up on 50 years. Are you kidding me? What has been the net result of the sequel trilogy? Because they ran it in the ground in 3 movies. They decanonized the extended universe. So there goes the Thrawn trilogy. There goes the Yuzhan Vong. There goes all the stuff that Timothy Zahn did that literally kept the franchise alive when there weren't any movies. They came in and threw that out and said, no, we need sentient rocks and we need Jedi Wookiees and we need, okay, and everybody can be a Jedi and it's not exclusive about, okay. They ran Star Wars in the ground in 3 movies. Force Awakens, Last Jedi. Last Jedi was the death of Star Wars, and The Rise of Skywalker was the funeral. How come we haven't had a Star Wars movie since then? And how come the next movie that we're supposedly getting is The Mandalorian and Grogu? They had to go to a TV series that was only successful for the first 2 seasons because they ruined that in the 3rd season by replacing Mando with Bo-Katan. Same thing. See, that's what I'm telling you. That's why I don't care what people say. I don't care about all the bloviating and the bus and all that. What's the bottom line? What's the net result? The net result is you destroy everything you touch. That whole thing destroys everything it touches. And so Star Wars, which used to be a license to print money, has to go to a TV show idea and movify that. And they destroyed Boba Fett. Tamora Morrison said they destroyed Boba Fett. He didn't like what Mark Hamill said he disagreed fundamentally with Rian Johnson's take on Luke. Tamora Morrison said he disagreed fundamentally with their take on Boba Fett. The actors that have played these characters for the last 4+ decades said this ain't the right interpretation, this ain't the right take. And they made him do it anyway, and what happened? Luke Skywalker is now destroyed. Boba Fett is now destroyed. See, the net result has been destruction. That's why I don't care what people say. I don't care how they try to argue me down. I don't care what kind of names they call me. Don't care, because what has been the net result? And the same thing has been true for Peter Parker. What's been the net result? What's been the net result of putting Mary Jane with Paul? What's been the net result of that? What's been the net result of all this wokeness? Because they keep saying, we're going to take characters, Feige keeps saying, we're going to take characters that weren't successful in the comics, and we're going to give them a show. And I'm like, so you won't take the characters that we do want to see and give them shows and movies. You're going to take characters that didn't work in the comics, like Ironheart, like Sam Wilson, Captain America, like Echo, like Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan. You're going to take characters that have never been as popular and successful in the comics as you try to make them out to be and give them shows. And what have I been saying for the past several years? We need to see Chris Evans, while we still can, in an Invaders movie. Go back to World War II, where we have Captain America at his peak, and pair him up with Union Jack, Spitfire, the Human Torch, Jim Hammond, original Human Torch, Toro, Namor, and Bucky. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? If they just told people we're going to have an adventure with Chris Evans and Sebastian Stan back in the day, you wouldn't even have to promo that. We wouldn't even need to see a trailer. We could just tell people that was going to happen, and people would come running. Are you kidding me? But they have made a focused effort to platform characters we don't care nothing about, platform characters that haven't worked in the comics anyway. Does that make any sense to anybody? Anybody out there watching my video, does that make any sense at all? I don't think so. I really don't. Okay, so that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching me live, those of you that tuned in and watched me live. And thanks to those of you that are watching this on the replay. Don't forget to like and share this video. I'm just dropping my panel review of Fantastic Four today. So I have my live stream review that's on my weekly comics chat. But I did a panel review where I called in some other folks and we went through Fantastic Four kind of concept by concept. So that's dropping today. So I'm going to put that link in the description box below. So be sure to check that out. All right. Thanks again. That's it for today. I will see you next week on my next weekly live comics chat. DT2 Comics Chat out.